What if I told you that every threatening letter, every call demanding payment, and every attempt to take your car or home without proof isn't just harassment, and it can actually be a federal crime? Now, today I'm going to be exposing how banks and collectors cross the line into extortion and unlawful repossession, and why the law is on your side and not theirs. Before we dive into this video, this is not legal advice, this is not financial advice. Remember to do your due diligence, okay? Remember that I can talk about this, right? I don't want you to just trust me, you dig me? I want you to actually find the truth. And if you can promise me that, then stick around all the way to the end. Number 2, if you're brand new, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on those post notifications so that you get updated every single time I post a video. All right, now that we got that out the way, we are still on the track of exposing the criminal activity of banks, okay? Now, everything we could talk about the civil side. We could talk about the fact that they commit fraud every single day. And yes, these are civil acts that may violate our civil rights, but they could actually be creating a harm against us. You dig me? So we're gonna go ahead and uncover that today. For those of you guys that may have had your car repossessed, maybe got your house foreclosed on, and they didn't give you a proper due process. They failed to provide information to you. They didn't do anything that he or she is required to. We could be potentially talking about a federal crime. So let's go ahead and do a deep dive on that and hop into this video, okay? So the first thing I wanna talk about is 18 USC 1951, okay, which is the Hobbs Act, okay, that essentially breaks down the aspect of extortion, robbery. All right, under 18 USC 1951, it says interference with commerce by threats or violence. Okay, the key thing is commerce. All right, when we're dealing with banks, we are dealing with commerce. All right, so whoever in any way or degree obstructs, delays, or affects commerce or the movement of any article or commodity in commerce by robbery, you understand me? Or attempts to conspire so to do, or commits or threatens physical violence to any person or property in furtherance of a plan or purpose to do anything in violation of this section shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both, okay? It breaks down what the term robbery is. You understand me? It says robbery means the unlawful taking and obtaining of personal property from the person or the presence of another against his will by means of actual or threatened force or violence or fear of injury, immediate or future, okay? To his person, to his property in his custody or possession, okay? Even the property of a relative or a family member, whatever the case may be. It's very funny because we could easily argue one thing that is considered injury is, threatening to take my vehicle or keeping me from being able to go to work so I could be able to make money to survive. Doing something that could give me emotional harm, right? All fall under the category of potential injury. It could be, and also something that is against that person's will. Now imagine if somebody was exercising a due process and even after the fact, they got stopped by the police. Not the police. Somebody comes to repossess your vehicle after months of you communicating with the debt collector about the reasoning as to how you are attempting to perform, okay? And they decide to still repossess your vehicle or foreclose your home without your consent. That could fall under the category of robbery, all right? And then the term extortion, because people think that robbing somebody is just going to the store and taking something or, pickpocketing somebody. But even on a bigger level, foreclosure and repossessions can also be robbery if you are moving properly. Now, let's talk about extortion. It says extortion means obtaining of property from another with his consent, induced by wrongful use of actual or threatened force, violence, fear, or under color of official right. So let's just talk about that real quick. When I look at this, the first thing that kind of pops into my head is actual or threatened force, okay? Threatening to sue, okay? And then the fear aspect, right? You fear what could potentially happen when they come and take your car. You fear what somebody, coming to your private property, right? You fear that no matter where you go, somebody could potentially take your car and leave you stranded where you're at. That right there can fall under the category of extortion. All right. So extortion is defined as something is obtaining property from another with consent, induced by force, violence, trying to instill fear. And that includes fear of repossession, fear of foreclosure, fear of wage garnishment. Okay. Especially when they don't have lawful standing. Okay. So, and then we dive into one of my other topics, other laws, UCC 9-609, which talking about the aspect of a secured party's right to take possession after default. All right. So after default, a secured party may take possession of the collateral without removal, may render equipment unusable, and dispose of collateral on a debtor's premises. Judicial and non-judicial process pursuant to a judicial process without a judicial process proceeds without a breach of peace, assembly of collateral. The key thing is without a breach of peace. Okay. So yes, UCC 9-609, which was they'll say, hey, we can repossess because of this, but only if it is done without a breach of peace. Now we could dive in and talk about what is breach of peace, but I'll give you an example. The second they use intimidation to enter your property without consent or continue after you object, that's when it becomes lawful. Because if you object to the repossession, right, you're standing right there and you say, do not repossess my vehicle, and they still do it, that is constituted as a unlawful repossession. If you tell them, hey, I'm going through litigation, they cannot send the repossessor after that to try to coerce you to pay your bill. That's extortion at its finest. All right. And someone will say, well, if they're committing extortion, why won't they lock them up? Because we're on an enterprise level. You know how many big company? I mean, we could talk about Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump have been indicted and this, that, and the third, but he's the president of the United States. So the bigger you are in business, the more you can get away with stuff. Okay. Because you are literally helping the economy, or in other words, helping the United States make money. Okay. So if you're helping the United States make money, you can get away with some things. All right. So now that we went through some of the laws, right? The law makes it clear that threats and intimidation aren't something that they can do to coerce you to collect. They are crimes. All right. And that's just talking about the law. Now let's dive into how banks abuse it. They'll do things like send you threat letters demanding payment after you have disputed the debt, right? That falls under the category of mail fraud and extortion. Because typically what we're asking, right, or as a matter of fact, that's not considered mail fraud or extortion. That's my next topic. But that's a wrongful use of fear, okay? If you are disputing a debt, that you have a right to do that. They are required to allow you to dispute without repossessing or doing something adverse to you. Let's come to an agreement. That will be the good faith way of doing things. They also do things like file foreclosure actions without producing the original note after you have asked. This is extortion and mail fraud, because if you send them a letter asking them for documentary evidence for the reasonings as to where they have the lawful authority to foreclose, if they're the legal holder in due course, if they own the original note, and they don't provide it and still continue, because the only person that can take your property is the person that owns the note. And the person that owns the note can authorize that. But what if they never did that? Okay. Another thing that banks do to abuse using extortion and more criminal activities, they would do things like send repo agents at 3 a.m., right? Doing things like breaking locks, towing cars while people object, doing things like a breach of peace, going in a private garage behind somebody that scanned their fob in, opening up your personal property. Okay, they may see the vehicle, but if it's behind the gate, they cannot walk in the gate and take your vehicle. That's trespassing. And these are the things that we think that banks are above. They are not above it. We just don't actually use it against them. And then debt collectors will use things like robocalls and spam your phone, send you things like, we will garnish your wages next week, without true lawful orders. If it's not coming from a judge, it is a threat and it is extortion. It is BS. Okay? They can say whatever they want in the message, in the letters, but if they aren't getting it from a judge, or it's not a lawful order, or they don't have lawful standing, then it's just criminal. Okay? So another aspect of that, understanding that with them, right, they cannot give you loose threats. Okay, so same to you. When you send a debt collector a letter intending to litigate, you better take them to court. Okay? But the whole point about debt collection, repossessions, and auto loans is the fact that they rely on your fear to make you comply. And most people never challenge it. They don't challenge the fact that they are trying to instill fear in you in order to pay. And once you bring that up, man, it really changes the script. So let's just talk about why it's criminal, okay? We already talked about extortion, okay? Threats to take your property under false pretenses. That's a Hobbs Act violation. Mail and wire fraud, okay? Under 18 USC 1341 and 1343. Actually, that entire section pretty much breaks down the fraud, okay? So every threatening letter or email that isn't validated falls under mail and wire fraud. But then we could dive into any civil rights violations when they're violating the FDCPA, when not civil rights violating, when they're violating things like 42 USC 1983, depriving you of your property without due process, okay? You have a right to due process. They cannot deprive you of your rights, okay? And then conversion and trespass, seizing your property without standing. That equals theft, plain and simple, all right? Or they're robbing you, okay? This isn't business, okay? It's racketeering at its finest. It's criminal. This is a criminal organization we could be potentially talking about. Banks are criminal organizations, and the law calls it out. So none of this stuff is just a conspiracy or coming out of my ass right now. It isn't. Pause. You dig what I'm saying? So let's dive into how to find the proof. Okay, so number one, to build your case, you need evidence. This is probably one of the most important things when you are attempting to challenge a debt collector on any of their fraudulent activities, criminal acts, okay? You want to save every letter, every envelope, every voicemail, okay? If it is recorded, you want to keep record of it, all right? That's number one. Create a binder. Number two, you want to record every repo attempt if possible. And if you got a video, that's even better. As soon as they start trying to take your vehicle, if you are there, start recording. Go outside, start recording, and tell them to stop. They continue to repossess your vehicle. That right there is, what is it? Extortion, robbery, okay? That is a breach of peace, okay? And if they try to intimidate you, that right there is also a breach of peace. That is also a criminal act. See, they think they can get away. They think, oh, it's just civil, so all the most they can do is sue. Forget the sue. You can bring up the fact that they're doing something criminal, which can strengthen your case. For those of you guys who haven't watched all my other videos talking about this, the whole point of understanding the criminal side of this is because this can strengthen your case. At the end of the day, you are challenging from the civil side. You're trying to get rid of debt, but let's just talk about the criminal aspects of what banks do. Don't you think that if you were to say that they are being criminal, that somebody is gonna take you serious? They wouldn't want that bad light. Number three, get witness statements, okay? If threats were made, get those witness statements. Number two, pull contracts and securitization filings. Prove they don't actually own the debt. And you can go to the sec.gov, use the Edgar's database, and you can be able to find pooling and servicing agreements, any UCC filings. Because if they securitized it and made money off of a debt, and then they attempt to come after the debt, then we're talking about them double dipping. Okay, the proper term for double dipping will be on the equity side for unjust enrichment. All right, and then keep all your certified mail receipts. When you send your letters, you want to send things certified mail. You want to send things registered mail. You want to send things to where you have a record. Get them notarized, especially those documents you need to admit in evidence. Okay, showing you have disputed the debt. Because if they threaten you, even after you have disputed, that right there falls under the category of a criminal act, okay? Now, every piece you save turns their intimidation into evidence, all right? So let's just say you dive into the civil side, and let's just say you potentially lose, and you want to escalate it. You can escalate it on these pretenses of some criminal acts that they have committed. You know what I mean? Now, you can't go back sometimes for the same thing, but you can go back for a different thing, okay? Now, here's how to use it against them. In lawful, you want to raise unlawful repossession as a counterclaim. You want to sue for the conversion, trespass, and the damages, or they can go to jail. Okay? In arbitration, you want to frame the threats as extortion and force them to prove standing. Hey, no, I feel like I'm being extorted right now. This is exactly why we are even here. Because I know this, I know that. I put these truths, I've sent this over time. They decided to ignore me, not provide information that they are required to provide. This is why I have not paid. Okay? I'm trying to perform and communicate and negotiate with my contract. And you're saying I have no place to negotiate because of what? You are above me? No, you're not. And if you think you are above me, then this right here, like, you are not making any sense at all. When I brought the value, okay? Without me, you cannot even participate in commerce. So don't act like you're above me. Yes, you may have more money and a big corporation and a lot of United States in court backing. But the reality is, without that, you're really nothing. You're just a piece of paper, okay? Same thing with the attorneys, okay? Yes, you may know the law and can represent, but y'all represent corporations. You're not actually representing the people. And those are the people that do, they are frowned upon by other attorneys. Like, y'all going against us. So it's crazy out here. So you frame extortion and you start to build up a narrative that they're doing something illegal to you. You want to send complaints to the regulators like the CFPB, FTC, State Attorney General, citing extortion in the Hobbs Act. This right here is going to get the alerts going. It's not that it'll make an immediate change, but it's building the case. So when you do go to court, or arbitration, there's no new information. Oh, I sent this 3 months ago that y'all was doing extortion, and this is how they responded. That's why we're here today. You get me? You can also file police reports for trespass, evidence of packets to the U.S. attorney, right? And the whole point, you start to use things like the Hobbs Act, extortion, right? You start to do things and file, talking about the criminal side of things. Your tone changes, and that actually gives you leverage for settlement. Because the only reason we're doing this is so that we could potentially negotiate, settle, whether we're gonna not have to pay the debt, best case scenario, we make money, right? The next case is the debt is, the obligation is nullified. Or the third case, we have a payment agreement, payment plan, or we brought the numbers down. Either way, if you have a $10,000 debt and you're able to negotiate them down to $5,000, that's a $5,000 win. You get what I'm saying? Some people don't look at it like that. Some people want to go for it all, or they feel like it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? If you have that in mind, that this is a business, this is a game, all right? Negotiation. Yeah. If you can knock down a $5,000 debt to a $1,000 or $2,000 debt, that's a win in my book. And then next time you figure out, okay, where did I miss? So I can be able to wipe it all out and maybe get some money back. You know what I mean? It's a learning process. So I'm trying to give y'all as much weapons that y'all can use against them. Number two, or lastly, let's bust some of the myths, and then we're going to dive into the big picture, okay? Repossession is always legal if you're behind. Okay, the truth is they only follow UCC 9-609, and if they hold a lawful title, that's the only reason or the only way they can repossess. Most don't, okay? So if you ask them for a lawful standing, or you ask them to provide documentation that will prove that they hold the lawful title, and they don't do it, then you can assume that they don't. So no, they will not be following UCC 9-609, okay? And on top of that, if they threaten or anything or try to coerce you to give up your vehicle, if you're standing there, that right there can make repossession illegal, okay? Threats are just a part of collection. Threats without proof equals extortion, period. Moving on. Courts always side with the banks. The truth is, wrongful repossession cases have led to big damages when consumers document the abuse. So as long as you document the abuse, the court has no choice but to side with you. Okay? You can't stop repo agents. Yes, you can. The second you object, any continued attempt equals a breach of peace. Unlawful. So for those of you guys who may have a repossession coming, the one thing that you can simply say if you see a repossessor is tell them to not take your vehicle and start recording. If they still take it, that person can go to jail. You get what I'm saying? And this is the language you want to use. Hey, if you take my vehicle, you're going to jail. I'm standing right here. As a matter of fact, I'm right here on my car. Get off my property. Call the police. Some people think that these repossession officers are with police. They aren't. They are privately owned companies. Okay? So tell them to stop, and they by law have to stop. They're not nobody above you. So here's the big picture, you guys. Banks want you to think repossession and foreclosure is normal, but the truth is, the second they rely on intimidation instead of lawful standing, they cross into criminal conduct. Okay? Criminal activity. Okay? This isn't debt collection, it's organized extortion. So once you see that, you stop reacting in fear and you start documenting their crimes. The next time a bank or repo man threatens to take your property, remember, without lawful standing, that is not a repossession. It's theft. It's robbery. Call it what it is. Extortion, BS, awful, whatever the case may be. I just broke it down. We know what extortion and what would be constituted as a lawful repossession. So if you've gotten all the way to the end of this video, you shouldn't be confused about why your car got repossessed. Okay? If you didn't pay it, just know they're coming. So this is why this video is so important, to know exactly how to combat against that. Don't act brand new. You know what I mean? They'll do everything. You can send every single letter to them and they'll still try to repossess your vehicle. But the only way that you could be able to fight back after they do it is to build a case of extortion, fraudulent activity, criminal acts, and even more, civil rights deprivation. Okay? So if you gotten all the way to the end, comment the word extortion. All right? Thank y'all for watching this video. If you want to learn more about this, tap into the school community. The school community is built around teaching people about consumer law, building your credit, and essentially funding yourself, okay? Through business, funding, and online marketing. Number 2, if you want to actually work with me one-on-one, tap into the mentorship application down below. This is a premium coaching experience. Not everybody can tap into it. All right? So tap into that application down below. Thank y'all for watching the video. Also at the same time, I'm helping brands build a social authority. So if you have a brand or a business that you're looking to grow, tap into the application below. And when you talk to me or my team, let them know that what you want to do is build your brand, okay? Not only would I help you, but I have a whole agency that I'm behind that pretty much helps me build up these brands. We've already developed a couple of brands already. So if you are looking to do that, tap into that application down below. Once again, thank y'all for watching this video. I love y'all, man. Y'all always come all the way to the end of the video, especially you. Especially you. And you know who I'm talking about. Especially you. Thank you. All right? I love y'all, and I'm out. This video is sponsored by the Fund Yourself Academy. My step-by-step system designed to help you fix your credit, get funding, and build real financial freedom from scratch. If you're tired of feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just ready to stop living paycheck to paycheck, this is where it changes. Inside the Academy, I break down everything from consumer law secrets that they don't teach in school to how to remove negative items and boost your score, get access to business funding, and start building multiple income streams online. Whether you're just starting out or ready to level up your game and get the bag, this is your playbook. We've got tools, templates, dispute letters, mentorship calls, private community access, and an exact roadmap I use to leave my 9-to-5 and create time freedom. But only for a limited time, you can get access to the Fund Yourself Academy on a free trial basis for the next 7 days. And then after that, you pay less than $1 a day at $27 a month, if you like it. No fluff, just facts, and just freedom. Go to the fundyourselfacademy.com or hit the link in the description to join now, because nobody's coming to save you, but you can fund yourself.